Hello everyone, this is Crota giving you a shoutcast between LiquidTLO versus EG's iNcontrol here on Shakuras Plateau. Game 1 in what I believe to be a best of 5 series between LiquidTLO and Evil Genius's iNcontrol Shakuras Plateau. Part of MLG Dallas, we have LiquidTLO spawning as the blue Terran player. Meanwhile, we have iNcontrol spawning as the red Protoss. So this is Protoss versus Terran here on Shakuras Plateau. And this is the MLG Dallas version of it, meaning there are destructible rocks at the back door, and we have the happy smiley face where a command center or a nexus would make the nose. So yeah, everyone's favorite thing right there. We can now see a SCV now making its way out and doing some very early scouting. So atypical here on Shakuras Plateau. Meanwhile, iNcontrol seems to be scouting, not knowing that you can actually scout and see, or you cannot actually spawn within your ally position here. And now finally making its way back over here, and a very early scout, just a very curious opening coming in from TLO. TLO now opting to go for his barracks. The barracks was a little bit later. You can see his SCV production was halted for just a little bit, as that one SCV which was scouting is now wasn't able to mine. Excuse me. So we are going to get an early or standard gateway, a standard assimilator coming in from iNcontrol. Meanwhile, back over here, a probe now getting some harassment onto this SCV here. A new SCV now coming over in order to offer some additional support as well. So 2 SCVs against 1 probe. That probe has taken some critical damage. Now, Shakuras Plateau, a map that I really don't think favors anyone in a Terran versus Protoss matchup. Both players can run off of 2 bases if they like. Running off a 3rd base is a little bit more tricky and a little bit more difficult. There is this expansion location here and this expansion location here that which you can try to take. Both are a little bit more exposed and a little bit more out of the way. We can see TLO still scouting around with this SCV. Meanwhile, iNcontrol may be trying to do something tricky and sneaky and setting up a pylon perhaps in this location here in order to be able to warp in units with an effective foyer. SCV is still wandering around the map still, as TLO may be setting up a factory in just a second. His supply depot is done. No, opting to go for a tech lab first. So it's going to be a little bit of time before a factory does come into play. And now the Marines just trying to make sure that there are no proxy pylons inside his own base. That's always a very, very important thing to do here on Shakuras Plateau, especially when you have a lot of room to really cover inside your base. It looks like an expansion attempt will be coming in after a Reaper and a tech lab. Now researching Stimpack has already started. So it is going to be a Reaper expansion here on Shakuras Plateau. Meanwhile, we are seeing that iNcontrol looking to perhaps expand himself as well. Or is he going to go for a robotics facility? There we go. It is a 1 gate into a robo facility, and an early observer will be out. A stalker should be trained up. Oh no, going for a sentry. So a sentry now going to be used in order to try to battle back a Reaper, and that Reaper should be able to get a lot of sight. Now we'll see if TLO is going to actually reveal his Reaper to his opponent, and it doesn't look like, no, it doesn't look like the Reaper will be exposed, as it does not fly or hover north of these Vespian geysers here, and the Reaper should be able to just simply get inside that base. And there is that stalker here, but that stalker is a little bit far away. So this Reaper, if it goes toe-to-toe with a sentry, should be able to win out in a 1v1 fight. And that is going to definitely help that Reaper. The Reaper is a very expensive unit, but so is that sentry. The Reaper now scouting out. You can see the command center already being established over here, and now the Reaper going after that sentry and getting some damage already, and that sentry gonna get taken down. A very nice trade by TLO already, but a second sentry now in play, and that Reaper just doesn't have enough life in him to continue to fight out there. We can see that the Reaper is still wandering around. A sentry is on that high ground here, and now in comes that stalker. Poor Reaper was holding position for just a little bit too long and gets shot down there. But a nice trade, a Reaper for a sentry. I believe the probe was not killed. Actually, I think that's the low hit point probe. That probe was not killed. as an observer is now making its way out across the map. Immortals now being trained up as well, but with that stim pack being and finish being researched, TLO should have no difficulty defending against an immortal push just because he has stim pack. Stim pack does take a much longer time to research now, but it looks like TLO has been practicing this build in order to make sure that he has stim in order to combat that all-important Guardian Shield. One way to get around Guardian Shield is by putting Marines in a bunker. You do reduce the amount of damage from 6 down to 4 or 5 to 3, depending on if you're hitting shields or armor. But since you are firing 50% faster, it kind of negates the effect of that Guardian Shield. We also have the Marauders. The Marauders do not have concussive shell just quite yet, as units are now coming in. A scanner sweep does reveal the Observer. The Observer now shot down, which is very important to make sure that TLO doesn't reveal sight. And now the Marauder desperately needs to try to run up that ramp. Is it going to get up in time? No, not going to get up in time, but a lot of damage now being dealt from a long distance a Marauder, and the Marauder is able to shoot down that pylon. So iNcontrol not keeping track of his own pylons there, and now in trouble. There are SCVs, but they are not on auto repair, and they are now trying to repair here, but not able to, as there is a bunker now surrounded by force fields. Marauders and Immortals are both battling it out. The Marines are using stim to try to push and counterattack here, and the Immortal now going to get destroyed once again. A second bunker is going to be completed, and perhaps even a third bunker a little bit further away. Those SCVs need to be very, very careful. And I would say at this stage, even placing a bunker right here would have some merit. TLO could try to take down this pylon. He has to be very careful though. He wants to make sure that if there are force fields, the force fields do not trap his Immortals, or sorry, the Marauders on the wrong side, only to be destroyed by Immortals. There is still enough proxy pylons if iNcontrol wants to continue this push, but it looks like it is going to transition into a different strategy. iNcontrol realizing that this particular strategy is not going to continue to work out for him for quite some time. Yes, my name is Vincent Yuen. Okay, so TLO now continuing to just macro up. Meanwhile, we now have a transition into Colossi. Colossi, obviously a very strong counter, but we already have a starport with a reactor able to double train Vikings and Metavacs. This is very important, especially against Protoss, as Protoss late game generally revolves around Colossus, carriers against Terran, and I'll get more to that later, and then High Templar. So Vikings are the obvious counter to Colossus and are also very effective against those carriers. Carriers, however, do take a very large investment, as you also need to upgrade the weapons and armors on the carrier. Otherwise, those Marines are able to take them out of the sky as well. But as soon as you upgrade those carriers do become very, very efficient at dealing with mass infantry, as the Marines, with only a range of 5, so often cannot get within combat range, especially with with Stalker support blocking their way. You can see another Observer has been destroyed there. So TLO with very, very good map presence or map location, able to see the slight distortion in the air and able to shoot it out of the sky. So that light shimmer, semi-revealing. We are getting the cloaking field. That is Banshee cloaking field, not Ghost personal cloaking. That is the difference. If you're not sure, just hover over it and you can see if it's cloaking field versus personal cloaking. There is a slight name difference. We are not getting the extended thermal lance range though, so that is a bit of a surprise. With no extended thermal lance range, iNcontrol perhaps just hoping to get enough units or enough Colossus to try to deter this attack before he invests into that extended thermal lance range. He wants to make sure that his expansion is set up on his own. So iNcontrol playing a little bit more defensively at this stage in the game. Now, at this point, both players should be considering when to establish their third base. You can see 45 or 46 versus 42 SCVs of 42 workers, both sides continuing to double train workers. So that means by the time that this command center would be done, you would have an additional about 10 to 12 workers. So if you take a look at that number, an additional 12 workers means that you're at a 60 food count or a 60 food count just on workers, and you want to make sure you have that expansion already set up or already prepared for the next. We'll see when these players do opt to expand, as now there was a half drop that was just destroyed by these stalkers here. A Marine now just running through, getting as much sight as possible, and now also going in for Phoenixes. iNcontrol, I like this play by iNcontrol. Phoenixes will absorb a majority of that damage from those Vikings, and also with the Raven now being brought out, the Raven's point defense drone actually uses 20 energy per attack to try to intercept a Phoenix. So, and the Phoenix with that very, very fast attack rate can deplete the energy on a point defense drone relatively quickly, and by doing so allows stalkers to continue to battle it out and deal more damage. The Vikings are now finally on the move. You can see a cloaked Banshee now coming in, but oh, poor observer, or poor Banshee being revealed by that observer and now shot out of the sky. Low hit point Colossus in the back. We are getting that scanner sweep there. The extended thermal lance range not being chrono boosted, but it looks like TLO, if he engages right now, he'll have a very small window of opportunity to try to attack. And iNcontrol, oh, in trouble, gonna lose that one Colossus before that extended thermal lance range, and that was absolutely critical. But now that the lance range has been researched, that is going to help out significantly. The Phoenix now battling out against that Viking. Phoenixes are able to turn around and attack very quickly, and are also very effective against those Banshees. So the Phoenix is trying to play a very, very dangerous game, trying to make sure that they're out of combat range from those Marines, but within combat range of everything else. But now in comes a drop, and the drop is now going to be effective. 2 pylons going to get destroyed, as now the units are desperately trying to retreat back. We are perhaps going to get some Graviton Beam. No Graviton Beam. Stalkers now coming back in, and now going after that Medevac. Medevac now shut down, finally, as the Marines are going to get cleaned up, and now we're going to get this counterattack coming in once again. There is a decent number of Vikings to try to shoot down those Colossus, and we are also having some units in those Medevacs as well. Something you want to be careful of as a Terran player, to not have a medevac with units. You want all of your units on the ground the majority of the time. The Phoenix is now once again giving into pursuit. The Vikings, oh, turning around for just a quick second and going after those Phoenixes, but the Phoenixes are just able to continue to pursue and attack, cleaning up some of those Vikings. Vikings are now taken down. Another Viking, apparently not knowing about the new rally location, finally turning around. TLO is now setting up his expansion over here. There is still this proxy pylon that TLO doesn't know about, and now in comes a new probe. The probe does scout out this expansion location now underway, so perhaps we'll get some stalkers, and now we are getting personal cloaking for those ghosts. The cloaking actually points to the 6 o'clock location as opposed to the 12 o'clock location if you needed an actual indicator between the two to distinguish them. Now, iNcontrol and needs to at some point establish his third base, otherwise he will be falling behind. He is making the attempt to establish this and hold this middle ground, so I assume an expansion location will be set underway in just a moment. Zealot now trying to come in, trying to finish off some of those, and now this pylon finally going to get cleaned up. There's still one proxy pylon here on that high ground. The Marines and the Marauders gonna do a diligent effort to try to clean up anything over here as the units are now making their way in the center of the map. There was a ghost though, and that ghost got off a critical EMP shockwave against all of those units, and now the Vikings and Phoenixes need to battle out Guardian Shield, and there's the force fields. Nicely done. The Phoenixes going after those critical units, and now Vikings are gonna get shot down, but the Banshees are also dealing a lot of damage back and forth. So Colossus need to break through their own force fields in order to absorb much of that damage. As the Phoenixes are still fighting out, I believe the Vikings are going to get destroyed, and then as soon as the Vikings are gone, the Banshees are going to be in a bit of trouble. I believe this last Viking is going to get shot down. No, going after the Medevac instead. Needs to take down this Viking here, but there are no observers to reveal those Banshees, and the damage per second is very high on those Banshees, finishing off the rest of those ground forces. So 4 cloaked Banshees destroying iNcontrol's attacking force. Army supply 23 versus 77. Things not looking good production wise. Another Colossus is being brought into play. Stalkers are now being rewarped in, as iNcontrol is now on the ropes. He needs to get enough defense. Now at TLO at this option needs to put just enough pressure to try to contain iNcontrol. He does have his expansion already, as the Banshees are now making their way out. The Phoenixes are now finishing off the rest of those Banshees. I don't know why they decloak. The Marines are now coming in as well, and down goes this Nexus. TLO, instead of just trying to contain, now going for the killing blow, killing off the rest of those probes, and now iNcontrol says GG, go Metalopolis. So yes, game 1 going to LiquidTLO here on Shakuras Plateau. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this 1v1 replay.